Think about just the sheer scale of building happening right now, everywhere.
It's staggering.
Cities are expanding, populations growing, economies, well, mostly on the upswing globally.
And all that activity needs infrastructure, homes, workplaces.
Exactly. It's this huge construction boom. And, okay, let's unpack why that matters for us today.
Right, because all that building relies heavily on certain materials.
Which brings us neatly to our deep dive. The global market for gypsum-based products, looking at 2025 and beyond.
We've got a really comprehensive market report here.
We do. And our mission really is to cut through all the data, the analysis, and just pull out the most crucial insights for you.
What's driving it? The challenges, the trends, where the growth is?
Consider it your shortcut to getting a handle on this, frankly, enormous industry.
And it is enormous. The size, even just for 2025.
Yeah.
It's projected at, what, USD 84.72 billion?
84.72 billion is a huge number.
And that's not even the end point, is it? The report shows strong growth ahead.
Yeah, it's not a temporary spike. They're forecasting a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 6.70%.
Which is pretty healthy.
Very healthy. It means by 2033, this market could balloon to USD 142.3 billion.
Wow. So substantial, sustained expansion.
Exactly. And just so you know, our source here is a detailed market report, lots of data, analysis, projections.
Giving us a clear view of now and, where things seem to be heading.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture. Globally, where's the action?
Well, Asia Pacific is the big one in 2025, holding around 37% of the market.
That's right. Roughly USD 31.35 billion. But here's the kicker.
The growth rate.
Yeah, the growth rate. Projected fastest CAGR, a blistering 8.6% between 2025 and 2033.
And that's driven mainly by housing, right? China and India.
The report points squarely at massive housing investments there. So if you're watching for dynamism, Asia Pacific, especially India, looks like the place for the next decade.
It makes sense, doesn't it? You connect that to the urbanization, the population growth.
Absolutely. The sheer number of people needing homes, infrastructure, it creates this huge demand.
Almost insatiable.
Now, North America, still a major player, of course, over 29% share in 2025. That's USD 24.57 billion.
Their growth is steadier, though, about
Sure.
5.2% CAGR.
Right. Steady growth. And Europe, also significant, over 24%. So around USD 20.33 billion in 2025.
With a similar growth rate, about 5.5% CAGR.
So yeah, while Asia Pacific leads the growth rate, these established markets in North America and Europe are still huge in value.
Absolutely. And that steady growth still represents a massive amount of economic activity given their size. We shouldn't forget the others either.
No. South America, the Middle East, Africa, they all have their own pieces of the pie.
Each with different market sizes,
Yeah.
from billions down to less than a billion, and their own growth stories. South America, for instance, is looking pretty healthy at 7.0% CAGR.
Each region really has its own drivers shaping things.
Definitely.
Okay, so that's the global map. Now, let's dig into why. What's actually fueling this demand for gypsum products?
Well, the report highlights something we've touched on, that surge in construction activity. Globally,
Not just one region.
no. It's population growth, it's urbanization.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, over half the world lives in cities now, over 55%.
Yeah, that's an incredible statistic.
And just general economic development.
Yes.
More people, bigger cities, growing economies. It all means more building.
Simple math, really. More people need more places. But the report also points to something specific, synthetic gypsum in home interiors.
Ah, yes. That's an interesting one. It really speaks to the demand for modern building solutions.
How so?
Well, synthetic gypsum, often a byproduct from industry, right?
Yeah.
Offers really good energy efficiency and sound insulation.
Okay, so in those crowded cities we mentioned.
Exactly. Quieter homes, lower energy bills.
Yeah.
It's a big plus. So manufacturers see opportunity there. And it often uses industrial waste, so it ticks the sustainability box too.
Interesting. So it's building more, but also building better, maybe more sustainably. Good point. Now, what about the flip side? Any roadblocks? Restraints?
Yes, there are challenges. A key one the report flags is the volatility in raw material prices.
That's a big one across many industries right now.
It really is. It's complex. You've got geopolitical stuff, like the Russia-Ukraine conflict, plus the lingering supply chain hiccups from the pandemic.
All feeding into price instability.
Exactly. And that makes it tough for businesses, forecasting costs, planning projects.
Especially for a foundational material like gypsum. Price swings must ripple through everything.
They can, yeah. Affecting timelines, profitability.
Yeah.
It's a significant concern.
Makes sense. The report also briefly mentions some issues with installing certain gypsum product designs. Is that a major hurdle?
Hmm, probably not as big as the raw material costs,
Hmm.
but it's a factor. If new designs are complex, need special skills, take longer to install.
It adds cost, which could slow things down a bit.
Potentially, yes,
Oh,
especially for wider adoption.
got it. So cost, materials, and ease of use, both important. Okay, let's shift gears to the future. What trends are emerging? What's new?
Well, a big one is technology and new product development. We're seeing things like moisture-resistant gypsum boards, fire-resistant ones,
Meeting specific building codes and safety needs.
precisely, and also lighter boards, easier to handle, faster to install, maybe lower labor costs.
So improvements in performance and practicality.
That seems to be the focus, improving the product itself.
And the report also links back to population growth again as a trend fueling demand. Anything more to add there?
Well, it's the fundamental driver, isn't it? More people means more demand for homes, offices, factories. It makes affordable, durable materials like gypsum crucial.
And there's the regulatory push, too, towards green building.
Yes, that's increasingly important. Governments promoting sustainable practices. And since gypsum is recyclable, relatively low carbon footprint compared to some alternatives.
It fits that picture quite well.
It does. So you have this powerful mix. Population demanding buildings and regulations pushing for greener materials.
Okay, powerful combination indeed. Let's zoom in now. Specific regions, country examples, starting with North America.
Right. The U.S. is the heavyweight there. USD 19.38 billion in 2025, growing steadily at 5.0 procedural materials focus.
Yep. Canada's also significant, USD 2.95 billion, but growing a bit faster at 6.0%. Lots of residential and commercial projects up there.
And at Mexico.
Mexico's solid too. USD 2.24 billion market, 5.7% growth. So overall, pretty positive across North America, maybe Canada with a bit more zip.
Okay, and Europe, what's the story there?
Europe's quite diverse. Germany leads USD 4.03 billion in 2025, 5.7% CAGR. They have a strong focus on sustainable building and urbanization.
Makes sense for Germany.
Then the UK, also substantial, USD 3.42 billion, and actually a strong 6.3% CAGR. Seems like demand is really picking up there.
Interesting, slightly ahead of Germany in growth rate.
Yeah, and then you have France, Russia, Spain, the Nordics, Sweden, Denmark plus Switzerland, Luxembourg. They all add up to a big market with generally consistent growth across the major economies.
So steady growth overall, with the UK showing particular strengths. Now, Asia Pacific, the growth engine. Definitely the engine. China is just massive. USD 13.17 billion market in 2025, growing at 8.1%, all that infrastructure, high-rise building.
But India is the real story in terms of the rate of growth.
Absolutely phenomenal. A 10.5% CAGR, market size around USD 3.13 billion, and that's heavily fueled by government spending on affordable housing.
That 10.5%, it really jumps out.
It does. Shows the impact policy can have. And beyond those two, you've got Japan, South Korea, Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, all significant markets with good potential.
Okay, quite the powerhouse region. What about South America?
Brazil leads there. USD 1.38 billion market, growing at a healthy 7.6% CAGR. General construction demand.
And Argentina?
Argentina is actually growing slightly faster, 7.9% CAGR. On a smaller base, about USD 540 million. Residential and commercial development driving that. Colombia, Peru, Chile also contributing. So it's solid growth there too.
Right, moving across to the Middle East.
Lots of activity there. Saudi Arabia has a big market, USD 1.19 billion, growing at 7.5%.
And the UAE?
UAE is around USD 698 million, but growing slightly faster again, 7.7%. Then Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, also important markets. The construction push seems pretty widespread.
Okay. And finally, Africa.
Africa's more varied. South Africa has the biggest market currently, about USD 656 million, but more moderate growth, 3.8% CAGR. Infrastructure and interior finishes are key there.
And Nigeria.
Nigeria is smaller, around USD 149 million, 3.1% growth. A lot of that is driven by the huge need for affordable housing. The rest of Africa is significant collectively, but generally growing a bit slower.
Okay, that's a fantastic regional breakdown. It really gives you a feel for the different dynamics. Now let's slice the market differently. Segmentation. Plaster systems first.
Okay, so the report says manually applied plaster still holds the biggest share.
The traditional way.
Exactly. It's versatile, used everywhere, especially where labor is maybe cheaper or more available. It's the established method for getting smooth walls.
Makes sense. But machine applied is growing fastest.
Yes, that's the trend. It's all about efficiency, reducing labor time and cost, especially on big projects.
Right, automation creeping in.
Where skilled labor is scarce or expensive, machines offer speed, consistency. So it's being adopted more quickly.
Got it. Efficiency wins. Now, raw materials. Natural versus synthetic gypsum.
Natural gypsum is still the dominant source. It's accessible, widely used in plaster, boards, cement.
But synthetic is the one growing rapidly.
That's right. As we discussed, it's seen as more sustainable, using industrial byproducts. That environmental angle is increasingly attractive. Plus, its quality can be very consistent.
So natural leads now, but synthetic is the one to watch for future growth, especially with the sustainability focus.
Definitely.
Okay, product types. Plaster, plaster of Paris, wall putty, gypsum panel, like drywall, rapid wall systems. How do they stack up?
Plaster, again, holds the largest share currently, just because it's used so widely for finishes.
But the fastest growing is.
Gypsum panel, what most people call drywall or plasterboard.
Why is that growing so fast?
Several reasons. It's lightweight, it's got good fire resistance built in, it's relatively easy and fast to install.
And it fits well with modern construction methods.
Exactly. Prefabrication, sustainable building. Gypsum panel ticks a lot of boxes. That's where a lot of the dynamism seems to be.
Drywall seems like a key growth driver then. Okay, last segmentation. End use. Residential, commercial, hospitality, healthcare.
Residential takes the biggest slice of the pie. Yeah. Just the sheer volume of home building globally makes that inevitable.
But the fastest growth is somewhere else.
Yes. The report highlights the healthcare sector.
Really? Why healthcare specifically?
Think about hospitals, clinics. They need materials with good fire resistance, sound insulation for privacy, and surfaces that are easy to keep clean and sanitized. Gypsum products fit those needs well.
Ah, that makes perfect sense. So increased healthcare investment is boosting demand there.
Exactly. It shows how specific sector needs can really drive demand.
Fascinating. Now, this is obviously a huge competitive market. Who are the big players?
It's very competitive, yeah. A mix of big global companies and more regional ones. The report mentions names like Saint-Gobain, Knauf Gips, Global Gypsum Company, SK Escos.
The usual suspects, perhaps?
Pretty much. Companies with broad portfolios, big distribution networks, and a strong focus on R&D, innovation.
And they're active, right? Making moves, acquisitions, new plants.
Oh, yeah. The report notes Saint-Gobain bought Creso back in 2021, expanding into construction chemicals. Arcosa's Specialty Materials bought Southwest Rock Products, broadening their range.
And now.
Knauf had plans announced in 2021 for a new plant in Uzbekistan, expanding into emerging markets.
So lots of strategic activity, consolidation, expansion. It underscores the dynamism.
Absolutely. It's an active space.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful, a real deep dive. Let's try and crystallize the key takeaways for you listening.
I think the main thing is this is a huge market, and it's growing significantly.
Yeah.
Driven by those big global trends, construction, urbanization.
With Asia-Pacific leading the charge both in size currently and definitely in growth rate.
That 6.70% overall CAGR, pushing toward USD 142 billion by 2033. That's a strong outlook.
And we saw how specific bits are really driving it. Things like gypsum panels, the healthcare sector, and that incredible growth in places like India.
Which all leads us to a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on.
Go for it.
Well, with this huge focus now on sustainable building, how might innovations in synthetic gypsum, or maybe even totally new alternative materials, how might they disrupt this established market long term?
Good question.
And as technology keeps advancing, what new applications might we see for gypsum? Things we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah. Where else could this versatile material pop up? Definitely something to keep an eye on. A dynamic space, for sure.